Hi, this is Reba Nance with the Colorado Bar, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker for the webinar. This is Reba Nance again, and I'm introducing Peggy Maday. Peggy has been kind enough to agree to give us a simplified version of Excel. She's a great presenter, and I have no doubt that you will learn a lot. So Peggy, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
And I'm going to go ahead and start by muting the audience, so if you need to make any noise, and I'm also getting feedback, Reba, from your phone through the mic. But I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. So Reba, you are muted now.
Perfect. I also hung up my telephone.
The conference is now in presentation mode.
Well, good afternoon, and as Reba said, my name is Peggy Maday, and I'm an independent consultant with Turning Point Training Systems, and I've been providing training and support in the legal community since the late 1980s. Microsoft Excel has always been one of my pets, or one of my favorite projects, and I would like to show you today some of the foundational elements of Excel, and especially if you haven't worked with it before or if you're just not comfortable with it, I want to help you get started today. If you screen, we've got a budget up on the screen, and that's what we're going to be creating in this presentation. So it looks like we've got some computations. We've got some income. It's like $1,400 here in January, and total income of $5,000. And it looks like we've also got various line items of expense. And then we compute our net operating income, or how much money we have left over at the end of the month. And I'm going to use this little example to teach you how to use the foundational elements of Excel. I've got another worksheet up here that I've started previous to the presentation, and I've got some of the little labels typed in so that we could move a little bit more quickly. But it looks like I started with expenses, and I need to put all my income items in. So the first thing I'm going to learn about is how to insert some rows. And by the way, that's one of the reasons I love Excel versus a piece of paper. I can keep adjusting or modifying on the fly. But I want to insert a row, so I'm going to click on this little one right here, and you'll notice that that selects the entire row. And I'm going to right click and say insert, and as you would have expected, I've got a new row. By the way, notice I didn't have to answer any prompts as to what I wanted to do, because I had selected that row first. It knew when I said insert that I wanted to insert a row and not a cell or a column, something like that. Okay, I actually want to insert a few rows, so I want to repeat that same keystroke. Now I could just select the row again, right click and say insert, and lo and behold, of course, I got another row. Or I could use the repeat keystroke, which also works in Microsoft Word, which is F4. So I'm just pressing F4, and notice as I'm doing that, I'm getting a repetition of the insertion of the row, which again is very helpful. Now the title of my spreadsheet is going to be the 2013 budget. For right now, I'm not going to worry a whole lot about where that's sitting. Eventually, I want it to sit across the center of my spreadsheet, but for right now, I'm not worried about that. Okay, and then I'm going to put in my income items, so I'm going to go ahead and say ordinary income as a label, and then below that, I'm going to say assessments, and this is like an HOA assessment, just FYI, assessment for the end units. Okay, then I'm going to, and after I type my text in, what I'm doing is I'm just pressing the down arrow. So what that's doing is typing in the text, of course, and then moving me to the cell below. It kind of enters it as I move. And then I'm also going to have assessments. And notice it's kind of typed. It's noted that I've typed assessments before, but this time I want to say assessments for the middle units. Okay, and then I've got one more item, so it looks like I've got to insert another row, and again I'm just going to select, right click, insert, and there it is. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and say total income, and again it's kind of doing the type ahead for me. It recognizes that I've typed total expenses previously, so it thought that's what I wanted to do. Now notice all the text that I typed kind of spills out. It's a little bit wider than column A is. So I need to move column A to the width of all my text, and I usually wait to do that rather than doing that right away. And notice by so doing that, now all of my text is in column A and it's not spilling over into column B. If I would have left it like so, where the text is spilling into column B and then later on gone to column B, and you can see where it's spilling over in this row 10, and type something. I'll just type the number 15. Notice how then I can't see my text once I've typed into that particular column. So I'm just going to delete that back out. Okay, back to making my column wider. Before I just held my pointer between the line between A and B and drug. I'm going to try it a little bit differently this time. I'm going to double click. By double clicking, it does something that Excel calls a best fit, which means that everything in the column is fitted automatically into the column just with that double click, and I don't have to pay attention to how wide it needs to be. Okay, I'm going to have number of units, assessment, and again what I'm doing is just typing, not very well apparently, and there's January. Okay, now I need February. Whoops, got in the wrong cell. Started typing before I realized it, so I'm just going to hit the escape key to get out of there so that text isn't really put into that cell. And I'm going to go up here and type in February. What I want is across the top. I want January, February, March, April, May, etc. I'm going to use a little trick to fill in that text. So instead of typing, I'm going to highlight January and February. And then I'm going to take hold of what's called the fill handle. So this little dark box in the lower right hand corner is called the fill handle. And when I drag, note what I'm getting. March, April, May, June, and so on and so forth. When I highlighted January and February to kind of show it the pattern so it would know that I wanted every single month. That's called an autofill. If I would have typed, and let me just highlight those all out again and hit my delete key, and let's say I type in January and then April, highlight, take the fill handle. It's going to July because it's knowing that I'm moving in those 3-month increments. Okay, so again I'm going to go back and do the February because that's really what I want. January, February, fill handle, repeat, and you can use that for so many things. You can use it for 1, 2, 3. You can use it for first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. You could use it for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, those types of things. It looks like right now that assessments is a little bit is not really wide enough, the column that it's residing in. But I'm again not going to worry about that because I'm probably going to change fonts and put on bolding and so on and so forth. So it's almost too early for me to worry about that. Number of units, I'm just going to type in the number 10. Okay, and then I'm going to press my down arrow because next I want to type in the number of middle units. Okay, and again I'm going to press my down arrow. So I typed and moved all in one motion. Now oops, it looks like, oh, I made another boo-boo. I typed the 10 next to ordinary income, and I wanted to type it next to end units, and the 30 should be next to middle units. So I'm just going to take those two, highlight them. Now this time I'm just going to move them down. This is different than using the fill handle. I don't want that. What I want to do is just point to my highlighted area and just drag down my text a little bit. And then I've got the 10 and the 30 in the right place. Okay, my assessment for the end units is $140 a month, and my assessment for the middle units is $125 a month. Okay, notice though that there's no dollar sign or anything like that. I'm really not going to worry about that right now. Again, I'm going to do that with some formatting magic. Okay, let's go to January now. I need to compute what my income will be for the month of January. If I've got 10 units, each assessed $140 per month, I need to know what my total income is going to be. So I need to write a formula. And quite honestly, what I need to say is I need to say, take the 10 that's in column B, row number 3, and multiply that times D3. So B3 times, I said D, but it should have been C. B3 times C3. And it's very easy to make those little mistakes where you kind of read the row and the column number wrong. And for that reason, I prefer to, instead of typing my formula, which would be equals B3 times C3, and I certainly could have done that. And by the way, I'm just going to escape out of that because that's not my favorite way to do it. What I prefer to do is say equal, and then I touch the B3, and that improves my accuracy, times the C3, and again, this time I'm going to click on it and press enter. So instead of, and let me go back to that cell, instead of typing B3 times C3 and potentially making an error, I like to point. Let me show you that pointing method again. I'm going to write my formula for the middle units. So I'm going to go to the cell where I need to store the formula. I'm going to hit my equal sign, which means I'm creating a formula. And then I'm going to touch the 125, and it types in C4 for me. I'm going to put in the asterisk for multiplication, and then I'm going to touch B4, which is the 30, and when I'm all done, I'm going to press enter. I really advocate writing your formulas that way, and I think it makes you understand them a little bit better as well, just by touching versus typing and getting your cell references and making some error like I did when I was annotating just a couple minutes ago. Okay, now I'm ready to put in the total income. So it looks like, again, I need another formula, don't I? I need to add up the end unit income to the middle unit income. So I need to add this plus this. And to do that, I'm going to use an Autosum. An Autosum is something that I use very often. Note it's on the home ribbon, and far right hand corner, I'm just clicking on Autosum. And it looks like it has guessed what I want to add up just by where the numbers are falling. It is correct, so I'm going to press enter, just like I always do when I've put in a successful formula. I'm looking at my sheet here that shows me the spreadsheet that I had showed you earlier, and I realized that I didn't add a line for the accounts receivable other. So again, I'm going to add a row. So highlight the row, right click, insert, and there I go. I've got a place to put in that row annotation which I need, which is accounts receivable other. boy, I can't type here, VAVLE, other, okay, and I have got $43 worth of accounts receivable other. Notice, again, I still haven't really worried about the fact if there's dollar signs or decimal points or any of that type of thing. I'm going to leave that till later. All right, now I've got some other numbers that I need to fill in, and what I'm going to do with the management number and second billing and so on and so forth, going down that column, is I'm just going to enter them with my 10 keypad on my computer. I'm going to type in the number, like in this case 900, and press my down arrow because that's where I'm going to next. 25, down arrow 183, down arrow 800, down arrow, it's got 800 again. Whoops, I made a mistake. I'm going to go back to that cell, and instead of trying to fix it, I'm just going to type right on top of it, 800, down arrow. So a lot of times in Excel, because your entries are so cell-based, it's just easier to type over. Once in a while, if you've typed a lot of information, like let's say that transition legal and professional costs. Let's say I decided I want to abbreviate professional. I'm going to go to that cell and I'm going to double click, and that double click lets Excel know that I'm editing within the cell, and then I can kind of use the text like a word processor, and I can fix it like so. So again, when I make a mistake or when I need to retype, I can either go to the cell, double click and do my in-cell editing, or do like I did over here on insurance. I can just type over it if that's the easier way to go. And I'm going to continue on with my numbers, and I'm just using my 10 keypad and my down arrow. Here's my 0 in this particular cell. Okay, and now my $9 and my $2.50, and I've got a bunch of zeros, 0, 0, oops, 0 and my down arrow and 0 and so on and so forth. Okay, I think you get the drift, and what I really wanted you to understand is how you enter the text into each individual cell, how you correct it, and also how you move and enter all in one motion. Okay, I'm just going to kind of cut it short, and I'm not even going to enter the rest of these numbers, but I'm going to add up my total expenses. Okay, so I'm going to that cell, and I need to write a formula. And if you'll recall from before, when we were writing formulas to sum up, we just used the sum button. Now, a lot of people, what they would do here is they would go up and they'd say, okay, what do I need to sum? I need to sum everything from D8 all the way down, and we'll pretend we have numbers in here, to D28. But what I'm going to do instead, and I don't like to have to do that because I make too many mistakes. I'm thinking of too many different things at once. So instead, I'm going to use that Autosum button. And again, it has guessed correctly what I need to sum up. But what if it didn't guess correctly? Let's say I wanted that 5150 included in the summation. I don't. But let's pretend I did. Instead of pressing enter, I would just re-drag out that range like so, and you can see when I do that, it's actually including the right cells in my sum formula. I'm going to hit my escape key. I hit my escape key because I want to start all over again. So I'm going to hit that Autosum button, and I am going to accept by pressing enter exactly what it was giving me. I'm going to fill in a few more numbers. I'm kind of concerned that this isn't going to turn out real well if I don't have more numbers in here. And notice as I'm typing my numbers in, see how my bottom line expenses is changing. So writing formulas is so much more effective than just typing in totals, let's say adding it up on your 10 keypad and then typing in the number. We want this to be really dynamic, and so it can change as it goes. Okay, now let's worry a little bit about the way this looks. We've just been worried about entering numbers and so on and so forth, but I want to make this look a little prettier. For example, I would like a $sign on my first number here, which is something that a lot of accounting people do. They put a $sign, on that first number. So we're going to go to the 1400, and on the Home tab, we're going to go to the $sign, which is right here in the number group. So clicking on the $sign, and lo and behold, it assumed that I wanted 2 decimal points and that I wanted a comma. Well, thank you very much. I do want the comma, but I don't want the 2 decimal points. So after clicking on the $sign, I'm going to go a little bit to the right here, and you can see I've got a button to increase the decimal points or to decrease the decimal points. So if I click once, twice, okay, I've got the format. So the $1,400, I put the $sign on rather than typing it, and this is a lot more effective for a lot of reasons. I just went ahead and put the $sign format onto it and then decreased my decimal points. Now on my middle units, I want that exact same look, only I don't want the $sign, okay? So this time I'm going to use the comma format. Comma format is very similar to the dollar format, only difference is no $sign. Okay. But again, automatically I got the 2 decimal places, so I'm going to go to the right a little bit here in the number group, and I'm going to decrease my decimal points like so. Okay, that's exactly the way I want most of my numbers in the column to look. And had I thought about that, I might have done all of them at once. So I can highlight a range, just coming down my column here, and I'm going to put them all in that comma format. Except I lost my selection. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put them all in my comma format. What is going on here? I'm going to get this out of the way. I keep running into the little join me icons. So let me try the comp. There we go. Now it's cooperating. And then I'm going to decrease my decimal places. Okay, and you can see like where I had zeros, I'm getting dashes now, and that is a part of that format. Now on my total expenses, I do in fact want a $sign on that. In fact, I want a $sign on total income too, come think of it. So I want that same $sign format, but instead of going through all that, I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time. I'm going to click on the $1,400 because that's the format I'm trying to replicate. Click on my format painter, click, and then click on my total income, and it's painted the format from this cell to this cell. But darn it, I wanted to use that a couple of different times. So let me try that again. This time, instead of clicking just one time on my format painter, I'm going to double click. That way, my little format paintbrush will click. It let me use it once, and actually I'm going to put another one right here, and I haven't even typed anything there. But I've stored the format in that cell D30 because I'm going to put a total net operating income down there. Now when I'm done with my format painter, I'm going to turn it off by again clicking on the format painter icon. So just to repeat, I started out by clicking on the format that I wanted. I double clicked, and then I clicked on each individual cell that I wanted to paint it to, and then when I was done with it, I went ahead and turned it off by just clicking on the format painter. Okay, let's go on from here. Reba, you probably can't hear me, can you?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Oh yes. I was going to say I probably can't hear you. Should I continue on? I think we spent so much time in the beginning, and I've got Go ahead.
Yeah, we did, and so I want to keep this at 30 minutes, and so I would say give you another 10 minutes because that's about how late we started. Now, I've got a quick question because this is something I want to know, and I assume others did. Suppose you're looking at this spreadsheet right now, and then you realized, okay, I did all the formulas for the total at the bottom, but darn, I forgot to add another line. I want to add something, you know, in the middle here because I left off something. Is that going to, because I said D, you know, D8 through D whatever, is it going to catch that and add that amount?
So what I just did is I inserted a row as you were talking, Reba. Good question. And I wrote left off this. And I'm going to type in a dollar amount, but I want you to note that right now my total expenses are $4,218. This item I left off is $100. I'm going to go ahead and enter that in. And notice automatically I've got $43.18. So if you look at the formula, and I'm just going down there right now, note that it's going D8 through 29. So it did adjust. If you insert rows, and let me do another one, if you insert rows in the middle of the range, and my range is the D8 through D28 or the D8 through D29, whatever it happens to be, if I insert rows within the range, and let me just put in $50 this time, and away we go. Oops, wrong place. Let me just do it here, $50, and enter it in. You can see that it automatically resums for us, which is really wonderful. Okay, is that okay, Reba?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to go on a little bit further, and I'm going to write a little bit more complicated of a formula. I'm going to enter some numbers now for February, and quite honestly, my computation of the monthly assessment amount is the same for February as it was for January. I don't want to have to rewrite this formula, so I'm going to try copying it, but there is going to be a problem with it. So if I highlight the $1,400, I could copy and paste, or I could use another technique very similar to what I used earlier when I was doing the January-February. When you copy right next door to what you originally typed, you can use the fill handle and just drag that over. Now you'll notice I got all those pound signs. Now the pound signs mean it's not wide enough. Okay, so I'm going to double click like I did earlier. Okay. Oh my goodness, I know that can't be right. I can't be making $196,000 off the same number of units and assessments that I did in January and made $1,400. So something's certainly amiss. I did in fact copy the formula B3 times C3, but let me go over here. It says C3 times D3. So because I moved it one column to the right, it incremented my formula. And so it's, instead of taking 10 times 140, it's taking 140 times 1,400. And that's incorrect. Well, quite honestly, let me go back. I wrote the formula wrong. I want it to take B3 times C3, but no matter what cell this formula is in, I don't want it to change those cell references. I want it to always say B3 times C3. If it's in March, it's B3 times C3. If it's in May, it's B3 times C3. So I'm going to go back to my formula, and I'm going to put in dollar signs around my formula. So you see it says $B, $3. Likewise, I'm going to do it on the C3, and so the dollar signs around it. And so I have edited my formula to, instead of being B3 times C3, to say $B, $3, or absolute value meaning when you copy this formula, don't change it. Always keep it B3 times C3. So I'm going to recopy that now, highlight, go to the fill handle, drag it over, and I'm taking it all the way to June, and notice my formula comes over correct. I'm going to do that same thing on my middle units. I'm going to make my cell references absolute by putting a $ in both of the formula references. And you can manually type the $ in front of the B and manually type the $ in front of the B, or do what I'm doing, which is an old keystroke, and you use F4, and that makes the entire cell reference absolute and puts the $ in for you. It's a little less tedious. So notice my January formula really didn't change. But when I copy it, it works right now. So now I'm going to take the fill handle and I'm going to drag it over. Okay, that type of thing. So sometimes the fact that Excel increments the cell references as you copy them is a good thing. And sometimes it's a not so good thing. And you've got to say, no, you don't change them, keep them absolute. Okay. I'm going to do a little bit more math here. I think I left a space down at the bottom for the net operating income. Okay, so another formula. And what do I need to do to compute net operating income? I need to subtract the expenses from the income. So my way of saying it, instead of saying cell references, I would say the formula should read equals income minus expenses. And the way I type that is I hit my equal sign, I scroll up, I touch my total income, then I hit the next operator, which is the minus sign. And notice how it keeps that highlight there to help me visually. And notice it's typed in, it's typed in the D6 for me. Minus total expenses. And when I'm done, I press enter. A much better way to write the formula. Again, using that pointing technique instead of actually typing in cell references. Now, I haven't got any numbers in February and March, and quite honestly, they might differ from January and February, but just for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the same numbers I used in January. Now, I'm not going to take the summation yet, and I'm just going to copy them. And notice what I'm doing. I'm copying next door. I'm copying right next to where I'm at right now. So instead of copy and paste, which I could do, I'm going to use a little faster technique and take the fill handle, drag over the whole kit and caboodle, and notice how it's replicated those numbers for me. Likewise, my formulas I want to replicate, so I'm copying those over, but I'm using the fill handle. And by using that fill handle and by copying, I get the same formula. And I don't have to redo it. And it looks like I forgot to total here. So let me take this, and I need to take this and bring this over. And notice it's summing E3 through E4 versus D3 through D4. So when I copy a formula, it always increments it unless I put the $ around it, which quite honestly I do just the way I showed you earlier. I don't really worry about it or think about it, but you can tell pretty quickly when you copy a formula and it's not right. So there we go, and looks like that's it. Okay, I've gotten myself to 12:40, so I think barring Reba, give me guidance here. Can I take questions or?
First of all, I want to apologize for those folks who are having trouble. And if they want to contact me, rebaN@cobar.org, we can try and figure out what happened. This is a new conferencing for us, and I think as more people use it and get familiar with it, of course, there'll be fewer problems as we go on. If people do have questions, please feel free to email them to me, and I can send them along to Peggy. I don't want to go longer because we promised people this will be 30 minutes, and when we post this up to the internet, people will be able to access it after the fact. And I'm afraid that if we have people try to raise questions again, this is going to go on quite a way. So I do want to thank everybody for attending. Again, email me, rebaN@cobar.org, with any questions or thoughts, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month. Barb Cashman will be the next presenter on blogs, and that will be the 4th Tuesday in August. So we'll look forward to that. Thanks again, Peggy. We really appreciate it.